y'all, my name is Erin Castillo and I run the Instagram page Making a Statement Instead. I am a high school special education teacher for students with mild to moderate disabilities. I also teach a peer counseling course. It's psychology based and it teaches kids to be peer counselors for other students on campus. So that's what I do at my school site. I studied psychology at Sonoma State University in the San Francisco Bay Area and then went on to get my teaching credential in special education for mild to moderate disabilities. I currently teach in my hometown of Fremont, California, which is also in the San Francisco Bay Area. So here's what's going to happen today. I'm going to talk to you about how to incorporate mental health practices into your classroom and how to build your classroom community. I'm going to be sharing a few simple tips and tricks that I use with my students in my peer counseling classes, but also in my everyday special education classes as well. So without further ado, let's get started. Tip number 1, model it. Model the behaviors for them and get involved with your students. Model what it's like to share feelings appropriately, when it's appropriate, how it's appropriate, and who to talk to. I've done this a lot where I'm having a tough day and I just model for my students and explain to them, like, I'm having a rough day. Here's what I think is causing it and contributing to it, and here's what I'm going to do about it. These are the people that I feel comfortable talking to and why. And when I get home, these are the plans that I have for self-care or for just making myself feel better so that tomorrow I can come back and have a really great day. Sharing these tips with your students, sharing how you do it and modeling it for them is going to make a positive impact because you're leading by example. The next thing, be yourself. Be goofy, joke around with them, feel free to have fun because when they see you being yourself in your classroom, they're going to feel more comfortable being themselves. But this also goes, like I said before, is when you're having a bad day, showing them what those feelings look like, talking to them about how you think through your bad days and what you're going to do about it. Showing students that you're human and that you have bad days is going to build trust between you and them. And remember, a community with strong, positive adult modeling is going to build a much stronger community where your students feel comfortable sharing their emotions with the class and with you. Okay, that was a lot. Let's talk about how we get started with bringing this stuff in. So, starting with day 1, not day 11, day 1. On day 1, you want to put the syllabus, the procedures, all that stuff to the side. I know, no one has told you this before. Everyone is always like, start with the expectations, start with what you want your classroom to look like. And that stuff is great. It really is. I'm not telling you to just dump it, but it can wait a little bit. Start with building your community from the very first day of school. So let me tell you what I do in my classroom. So the first thing that I do in my classroom is we build tents from Teach Like a Girl. She actually talked about these. They're the little name tents. They're folded into like, little tents. And in the 4 corners, it has different questions that they answer. Let me just show you that here.
Christina from Teach Like a Girl posted about these little name tents. They're folded in thirds. And so they put their name in the middle, their pronouns, favorite subject, favorite color, favorite place.
As you can see, it has their name, their pronouns, which is really important because in order to make it a place where all students feel comfortable, you want to make sure that they can be themselves and that they're sharing, what they want to be called by so that we're not just making assumptions on what to call them. Also, just having those few questions about who they are and being able to share that, it just instantly starts building some connections between other students where they can say, hey, sushi's my favorite food too. Anyone out there? Sushi? Actually, I'm really like poke, sushi, any raw fish. Your girl wants it. What can I say? So starting with that is really helpful activity. And then the next thing that we do, which I learned from Teach Like a Girl, but she got it from Britt from Miss Fifth, and it is the card tower activity. Again, I'll show you a picture. So that card tower activity is great because students are working in groups. I had groups of like 4 to 5 kids working together to build these card towers. Now, I know you're thinking like, these are the first day of school. We're coming back from winter break. Can I do this tomorrow? Absolutely. It is never too late to start in with community building activities. And so I would definitely recommend just starting them tomorrow if that's what you want to do, or next week, or whenever you feel comfortable, start them. It doesn't have to be at the beginning of the school year. So these card tower activities really just help students to see who they had things in common with, what they had in common. And at first they were like, this is going to be impossible. There's 5 of us. How many things could we all have in common? But it turns out that they had a lot. So basically what happens is they sit together in the group of 5 and they write one thing that all of them have in common per card. And then they stick the cards to the side and they just keep writing and writing and writing until time is called. Now, I gave my students, I want to say like 7 or 8 minutes to do this. After that time is called, you have them pens down, cards down. I went around, collected the extra cards. And then I gave them 2 minutes to build the tallest card tower. It might have only been a minute. I don't know. 1 to 2 minutes to build the tallest card tower. And so that went from like, okay, we found information about each other. We found out what we had in common. And now we're going to take that information and we're going to work together as a team to overcome this obstacle, which is building a tower out of cards. So simple activity to do. It is building teamwork. It is building upon their interests and what they have. It is allowing students to see what they have in common with one another. And it's a fun way for you to like go around and get involved too and like jump in, like, what are you sharing? What do you have in common? And see if you have it in common too. So that it's like, wow, even I have that in common. So that way you're like getting to know the different groups and you're getting involved as well. So easy way to do that. On day 2, start out instantly with, all right, yesterday we had a lot of fun getting to know each other, but today we're going to set some expectations for this class. And here's the number 1 expectation. In this class, we are a community. In this class, we are a community. Do I need to say that louder? In this class, we are a community. Now, what does a community mean? Have students define it, talk about it. What do they see their families doing to be a part of a community? Their friends, their siblings, their teachers, other people, what do they see them doing? What communities are they a part of? Do they go to church? Are they part of a sports team? What other communities are they a part of? So really define community. And then set expectations for what you want the community that is your classroom to look like. But don't just do it for them, have them get involved and share. I know this is probably something that you've heard before, but it's just an important part of day-to-day, having something that you can refer back to and say, here are community guidelines, here are community expectations. When you're praising a student, no longer is it just generalized praise of, I'm so proud of you, but like, wow, thank you so much for using community guideline number 3. I know I'm pointing over here and there's nothing here, but we're pretending a poster is here. Let's put a poster there. So having some kind of guidelines that you can point to and say, wow, you are being a part of this community today. This classroom is better because you are in it and you're contributing to it. So being able to use those phrases and refer back to a set of guidelines that you've decided upon as a group is extremely helpful. And remember that starting the year off with community building and setting community expectations is going to set the tone for what the rest of the school year is going to look like. Okay, now I'm going to talk about some things that I use in my classroom to continue to build the community and keep the community strong throughout the school year. So one of the things that I do that I started on the 3rd day of school is my mood trackers. Now I pass these out to my students and I modeled it for them. Here's what I'm doing. I'm filling out my 6 moods that I typically feel. Here's what it looks like. So I can just show you one page. So I showed them, these are the 6 feelings that I feel the most. And then I filled out what I was feeling that day. I also went back and did what I felt the most the day before. But so just getting in the habit of showing them what you feel, then passing it out to them, having them fill in their 6 Typical moods, this might take them a while to think about, so you might want to brainstorm with some of them, go around, talk to them. Well, what did you feel yesterday? What did you feel today when you walked in or when you woke up? Or talk to them about feelings that they feel typically. So that way it can help them fill it out. And then talk to them about what they've been feeling that day, or if it's early in the day, then do the day before. So I have my students fill this out every single day when they come in. It's the first thing that they do. They grab a colored pencil on the way in the door. They already know what color they're looking for usually, and they just fill in the day and what they were feeling. Then at the end of the month, they do a reflective activity. It has a graph that they fill out, and then they also kind of look at, like, are there any patterns? What contributed to these feelings? So it's really getting them to reflect on what they're feeling and why they're feeling that, which is an important piece for even adults to be able to do in their lives. You know, it's so hard when I get into a funk sometimes and people are like, well, why are you in a funk? What's going on? How can I help you? And I'm like, I don't even know. So having those mood trackers to just kind of look at and see, like, oh, well, I wasn't really feeling that great on these days, and maybe they made a little note next to it of here's what's going on, can be really helpful. So mood trackers are awesome. They're an awesome tool in my classroom. If you're looking for some, I do have some listed on my Teachers Pay Teachers store, these exact ones that I showed. The next thing that we do is my mental health check-in board. I'm literally just starting this with some of my students. We're 2 months into school. So, because we're 2 months into school. So it's been a while. But the reason why we're just starting this now is because we really had to focus on building community in other ways, talking to each other, how do we have discussions, setting that kind of tone for things before just jumping into sharing our feelings in front of everyone, because that can be uncomfortable. And I really want to make sure that students would be ready before just jumping in with that. So this one, I would say wait until you feel like your students are ready. The mood trackers are something that's more private. They're doing it for themselves. They're only showing you their book at the end of the month, whatever. But the mood trackers, it's putting their feelings, not with their name on it, but still they have to go up and place it there themselves. So it is putting it on display. I created this chart last year. There's lots of articles about it. If you want to look up more information, just search my name, Erin Castillo, teacher. It will come up. So feel free to read more about that. But I do have this free in my Teachers Pay Teachers store if you don't want to make one yourself, but it's super easy to make. You could even do it as a Google form. It's totally up to you. But I like the visual component because it shows students that they're not alone in their feelings. So again, I really like the visual component. I like that it lets students see that they're not alone, but this can be triggering for others to see so many in a dark place. It can cause others to be upset. It can be uncomfortable just wondering if people know where they are on the chart. So that's why this needs to be handled delicately. It's not something, I've said this so many times to people, it is not something that you can just go slap up, put on the board the next day and be like, let's go share our feelings, kids. You really, really need to build up community before doing this. So let's talk about how I do that. The first thing that I do is we start by identifying the feelings that are on the chart. So it starts with I'm great. Talk about what does I'm great mean? Who feels great when this happens, and like giving them scenarios. What are other times when someone may feel great? Someone give me an example of when they felt great recently. So having students share things out like that and then moving down the chart. As you get to the more severe level ones, remember tip number 1, model it for them. Don't ask them when's a time when you felt like you were struggling, because again, that's something that's going to be difficult for them to put on display and share and even put into words. So rather than asking them to share that out, talk about when you felt like you were struggling. Give them an example and really set the tone and the expectation. Maybe you add this, you can always edit the community guidelines that we talked about in tip number 2. So maybe add on to there that when we talk about feelings and when we talk about these more serious topics, that those conversations stay in the classroom. So as you're modeling that, remind them that what you're talking about stays there. I'm not telling you to go super deep, but share something about a time that you were struggling. So I do this with my students. I studied psychology because I had undergone some trauma. I had experienced some pretty difficult stuff, an eating disorder, some PTSD. And so I kind of go into some of that with them, just build that rapport even more. Let them know that like I've struggled with things too, because a lot of times I just see teacher, we are robots and we have never experienced anything difficult, right? Wrong, we've experienced stuff too. So it helps to be able to share that with them as well. So let's answer a few things here. So what a mental health chart is it is a tool to use in the classroom to find out where students are at. It is something that you can use, again, with Post-its, Google Forms. I've seen people use really cool Velcro options or clothespins, whatever you feel comfortable with, to have students put themselves into a category where they are not having to verbalize what they are feeling. They're able to just simply go and place something somewhere and it's done. Again, it also creates a visual for students to see that they are not alone. Where do you have this? So mine is in like a private area of my classroom that I can see. So it should be in a place where you can see it from where you're going to be standing when students check in. So where my desk is and everything, I have like a little cove. My room is kind of L-shaped. I wish I could show you like an overhead picture, but imagine an L. My room is like an L shape, and so part of that L is out of sight for many of the students, but I can see it from the front of the room. So I have it on a cabinet over there where students can check in, and I can just see like where they're placing their Post-it in case they forget to put a name in or an identifier. I can see where they're at. I also can make sure that they're not flipping up and looking at other students so that it maintains privacy and confidentiality. A question I get a lot is, how often do you do this? And it varies. It's up to you and what you're feeling. Feel out the room. If you think a bunch of your students are kind of having hard days, or the holidays are coming up, or state testing is right around the corner, feel free to check in more often. I typically do like once a week, once every other week. Some people do it daily. I don't feel the need to do it daily, but I do have students that will come in and they like notify me. They're like, can I have a Post-it? And they just go over and put it up. And that's really cool, because then I don't need to like have it be super redundant and do it with everyone every single day. It can just be as needed, and it allows students to still check in with me if they really need to do that. The next question I get about this is, when do I do this? So I do this, I announce at the start of the class, hey, today's a check-in day. I'm going to check in, again, modeling. I'm going to check in. Here's where I'm feeling today. Here's what I think is contributing to those feelings. Here's what I'm going to do about it. All that stuff that I talked about in number 1, I model for them on check-in days. I go check myself in. I usually even do check-ins on days where I'm like not feeling the hottest. Probably should have done one last week because I was not feeling too great. But I model it all for them. I put it up, and then I invite them to check in if they want to. It is not a requirement. They don't get a grade with it, nothing like that, because I don't want to make it a negative thing. I don't want to put pressure on them, and I want them to do it if and when they want to. So I invite them to check in at any time during the class block. We have an 83-minute period. So I just tell them, like, you know, Post-its are over there, pens are over there, write your name or some kind of identifier on the back, check in for me. Some of my students write me notes on there too. It's up to them what they want to do, and then they check in. I do give periodic reminders because I'll have kids that get into the thick of their work and they stop focusing on checking in, which good, and they focus more on their work. So I do have to give reminders for them. So my last takeaway for you is that community building isn't just about one day. Mental health teaching isn't just about one day. It happens every day. It happens often. I constantly am building in affirmation activities. I have self-care activities. So it just keeps building that community. It keeps bringing in mental health awareness and those practices so that my students are practicing it all year long. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Again, my name is Erin, and you can find me on Instagram or Facebook at Making a Statement in SPED. Thanks again for tuning in, and I hope that you got a lot out of this. Bye.